So, the title of the video may be controversial, but I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to explain my life. I'm going to explain why I think it is, and I'm going to explain my my situation right now. So, first of all, um, I grew up in poverty. Pretty much, my mom had mental health issues, and my dad was working 3 to 4 jobs. My biological father. I guess I can't call him my dad because I'm not with him anymore. um, but yeah, it was pretty bad. We were malnourished. I was just living mostly with my grandma because my mom was barely home since she was off partying. She had a lot of mental health issues and she couldn't deal with them. And then of course my dad was working. And this was in Guadalajara, Mexico. So, and I don't even know because I do have memories of like a car before that. So maybe that was me going back to Guadalajara. I've had very good memories and like very lucid dreams. That's always been the thing with me. So yeah, we were living in Guadalajara from when I was born, pretty much until 4. I remember the pink house. It was a pink house. It was pretty funny. I remember the monsoons we had where like there was just flooding and people would be using the drains above their houses to like I guess take not take a shower, but just have fun with the water. People would just go out in their bathing suits on the street. The water was very warm. It was when life was much more simpler, right? I remember the iguanas. I remember pulling the tail off of iguana. Um, so all in all, I think I've had just a positive outlook on life, and only in the most recent years have I realized that this world is truly shitty and evil. The universe is shitty and evil and needs to be restarted in any way, shape, or form. That is just the truth. Because it seems like evil will always reign supreme over good. It just seems like that's the case. Chaos is the final tipping point before everything in the universe just becomes dead, right? And I didn't realize this until towards the end of high school, towards like 2020 when the COVID really hit. Um, yeah, and it was pretty bad then. But let's continue with my life story. So we were malnourished. We were doing okay, and not until I was 4 actually. We moved to our grandparents' house or our uncle's house, and I don't know why, but I barely saw my father. Sometimes saw my mother. I'm sure my father was working just to support us, so he was working his ass off. Um, but yeah, I never realized that until much later when I heard my sisters talking about it, which I haven't seen also in a while because we were separated. We'll get to that. Um, so yeah, after that, I was put in a foster care system, and then I went to a foster home. Actually, on my 4th birthday, actually, I remember that on when I was 4, exactly that day, we arrived at that house, and it must have been the worst present that anybody has ever received. You could have received nothing, and it would have been much better than that situation. We were seen as servants. We were seen as underneath the pedestal of their children and them, and it was pretty fucking horrible. And the worst part about it is that it was a Christian home. Yeah, it was a fucking Christian home. And these were, I think they were Spanish. I don't think they were Mexican. But they were definitely Spanish speaking people. That's as far as I can go with that. I didn't go. They were definitely very light skinned for Mexican people, right? Maybe the mother was more like half Mexican or something, but they were definitely Spanish people. Um, and yeah, we lived in the big house and everything, and they definitely had enough money to feed all of us, but they didn't. I was malnourished, so were the rest of my siblings. Um, and they were very strict on us. Like as children, we're troublemakers. We have a lot of energy. We have to take it out some way, but we didn't have books. We didn't have video games. We didn't have toys. That was all delegated to their children. They even took our Christmas presents away that we got for Christmas from our social worker, or like they would come over and give us presents, and it was amazing. But they would take away most of them. So at most you'd have like one or two toys or something like that. And also the money that they were supposed to be supporting us with, they were just using it for their own gain, right? The thing was that the father was on not paid leave, but he was compensated because he got his back and foot injured in construction zone. So he was pretty much just at home most of the time working on his cars and stuff. Um, but yeah, it was pretty fucking horrible. Most of the memories were just me stuck in a room, which, if that sounds very familiar to COVID, then yeah, it was pretty much just like COVID. But if you did anything wrong, you would be carried up by your ears, which is why my ears are elongated. Um, they would just carry me up the stairs like that every time I did something bad, or they would get my sisters who had to do it. They've apologized for it many times, but they had to whip me, and sometimes the belts had metal, little metal like triangle diamond pieces of it or whatever. So yeah, it was. We were pretty much in the worst fucking situation ever. Um, we were barely fed. I remember I had to massage the disgusting man's foot, Emmanuel Resendez. Of course, I still remember his name. Piece of fucking shit. And they were really rich. Like they had a one of those massive box TVs. Like I'm talking about like 80-inch. Like they're like the big massive box TVs. Like it looked like a giant dresser, but and the screen was massive. But it was like very fat, obviously. Um. So yeah, it was. I don't know. Like everything that you saw in that house was luxury. Like they had a two-story house. Of course, it was in the suburbs. It was in Los Baños. So like 2 hours from SF, maybe like an hour and a half from Pomona. So it was Central Valley, California. It was always hot, like 100 degrees, 100. It even got up to like 115 or something like that some days. But yeah, they had all the money to support us, and instead of doing that, they decided to treat us like slaves, like lesser than human beings, and it was pretty fucking bad. Did the adoption or the um did they do anything to pretty much punish them? No. So like that was the first glimpse that I saw that evil is literally the only way to succeed over everybody else, because the system doesn't take that into account. In fact, it supports it. It's just society itself, right? So that was pretty bad. And just for me understanding that. But again, I was young and I didn't think of anything but like just I tried to think of life as positive. And it's always been my mentality until I reached the end of towards high school. When I finally matured enough to realize that no, I should realize that all of these bad things happened for a reason and that they were much more impactful than anything good that ever happened in my fucking life. So yeah, that was from when I was 4 till 9. So 5 years of fucking hell. And I finally got adopted when I was 9. Yeah, and when I was 9, we finally got adopted, and we felt like they were very nice people. Our sisters agreed that we should get adopted by them. By the way, this is by the point where my older brother left, so and my older sisters also were pretty much gone, except Carla, I think, which was my second oldest sister, and she was pretty much going into college, or she was at the end of her high school thing, I think. Um, but me and my little brother, who was 4 years younger than me at that time, so he was 5. We ended up getting adopted like around Halloween, a little bit before Halloween, and we actually ended up going to school the day after Halloween. So at that point, I realized life was going to get better, but I didn't really think like I couldn't really change my behaviors, right? It was pretty much programmed into us to be subservient, people pleaser. Like that was pretty much the only way for us to survive. Otherwise, we'd be get sent to the room, no food, and we'd just be left in our room. And again, no books, no video games, no toys. So we were pretty much just left to think, just sitting in a room doing nothing. And there was much worse stuff. We were left outside with the dogs, given leftovers, and them laughing at us through the door while it was raining, cold, and pouring outside. I still remember that very clearly. Um, yeah, and like I can't even remember the amount of times we were left in the garage and we had to eat dog food. I remember doing that because it was literally like we were fucking starving and these people were literally fucking devils. The only relief we had was when we went to church because they had giant potlucks and there was always an excess amount of food, and I would just be like it was the happiest moments of my life. Um but no matter how much you prayed to God, he really didn't give you anything. He just pretty much left me in that situation. um and you know what's the funny thing is that once we got adopted, religion kind of just stopped for us. Like I stopped and life got better. Like isn't that funny, right? Like I stopped worshiping God or actually trying to connect with him, and life actually got better. Like that is insane to me that people still follow religion. Um and I know that's like a biased take because of course I was adopted and I was brought to San Francisco. So again, I was living in a city. It was technically, I would say, the similar amount of wealth, but this time they were only taking care of two children. Um, so it was a lot better, right? It was insanely better. Like my situation got entirely better. If I sound weird, it's because I've been starving for a day, and I'll show you my weight at the end of the video. Um, but yeah, it pretty much got to a point where life completely flipped the script for us, and I'm not gonna say it was necessarily a bad thing, but it wasn't a good thing either because it made me numb. Like it was pretty much I faced the two extremes, and instead of finding a middle ground, I got not sweet talk, but like I just kind of felt that everything would be okay so long as I felt good, treated people nice, and lived the world as an honest, happy man, which has not been the case for anybody, right? um, yeah, so after I got adopted, life just became great, and it's honestly been a blur since then. Um, and I kind of got used to the idea that money would always be there. Um, like I didn't really think of money as a thing because again, I didn't have money when I was younger. Um, Not even then. I barely had the necessities to survive. Like I was literally underweight, always had a skeleton, like I do now. So it's pretty much just returned to my own old situation. Um, and it really got me thinking now, these past 4 years, that I really should have understood back then. Like, if I could give advice to myself, money is important. Just because, your life has gotten better, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be like this way forever, right? And it could be if I relied on my parents, but I don't want to do that because they've already supported me for 9 years and have done so much for me. And I'm in my adopted parents now. Of course, I just call them my parents because, well, my foster parents were more like tyrannical landlords that treated us like slaves. And my parents before were barely around. In fact, I remember my grandma more than I do my mother and my father, which is saying a lot, right? Um, yeah, it was just fucking horrible before then. So up until I was 18, I pretty much did not care. Like I was pretty much broke most of the time, even though I did internships. I could have invested. I could have done all this stuff, but I didn't see money as I wasn't greedy with money. I would just actually I was the opposite. I would just spend money like crazy. Um, and when I was broke, I'd be like, "Oh, I still have a home. I'm still being fed well, and I'm still happy." But I should have realized that that doesn't fall into adulthood once you turn 18. Go to live by yourself. I should have realized that all that money that I was making, I should have invested rather than spending it all and trying to make everybody happy, which is what I was doing. I was spending hundreds of dollars on weed, food, alcohol, like just things like that, because high school pretty much introduced me to. I think high school was where I peaked, which is kind of sad, but to be fair, COVID hit, and for 3 years, college was pretty much stay in your dorm, and just do nothing, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, high school was amazing. It was pretty much the limelight of my life. Middle school was pretty fine as well, but actually, yeah, middle school was pretty fine for me as well. I had friends, I had a girlfriend, so that's saying a lot. So like I pretty much just only had positive experience, and I think it numbed me to what the truth of the world is, right? What the truth is of what most people are experiencing. And the thing was, I knew in the back of my mind that there was people starving in Africa. There was people in third world countries that were living horrible lives, right? I saw people on the street who were homeless, and I would always try and give them money, right? That was just a thing that I did because I understood what it meant to be cold, hungry, and forgotten. Just treated like absolute the worst thing on the planet, which is crazy to me that humans are that evil. Like I don't understand, right? Um, just like we are beings, and we should make life prosper because again, the universe will end. Chaos, stars die out, planets become cold, lifeless husks of rock. Like everything dies out eventually. Everything gets swallowed by a black hole eventually. Like I don't understand why people don't see that and realize that we should just treat life as it is something invaluable rather than treating it like it is the norm because it's not. And I think that people have become numb to it, just like what happened to me, right? Um, so yeah, eventually I got to high school and I was just having really bad mental problems. I had lots of friends. School was easy for me to the point where I was smoking every day and I still had A's and B's, which I honestly don't know how that was possible. Um, but yeah, I was just like destroyed out of my mind. And mostly because I don't know why I just couldn't get a girlfriend in high school. I don't know what was the point. There was a lot of opportunities for me too, but it just it just didn't feel right. I don't understand why I felt that way. And eventually I got through high school, but then COVID hit and life just took an absolute nosedive. Like to where it was when I was in that foster. No, not even when I was in that probably before then. So like a little bit better, but without punishment other than starvation and well, I have two friends from high school. I used to be friends with pretty much 90% of the people in my grade and like 70% of the people in the grade below me. And then COVID hit and suddenly everyone just disappeared. This is probably the same for everybody, right? This was my senior year, second semester. And the funny thing was that I was actually looking forward to it because I was burned out from school. The thing is, I wouldn't have been burned out if I wasn't smoking every day because they made me tired. But the thing was, it made me feel good and happy, and it made me look brightly at the world, which is what I needed at that time. But I was doing it in excessive amounts. And it really did get me addicted to weed. Even, well, not till this day because it's been like a month since I smoked, which has really helped me like realize that I was really just down deep in that time period. But yeah, like I said, money never changed me. I had barely any money starting out in my life. It went to even worse to the point where I was not even being fed well. Um, Neither were my siblings, obviously, and I was being punished just because I was. I mean, I probably had a hormonal imbalance, so I was just like rowdy and I was a pretty demon child. I'm not gonna lie. I like to destroy things, but that's like most children, right? They're just destructive little monsters. Um, but the punishments I would get, just like kneeling on the floor for hours. I remember my knees hurting and like having to hold up wood planks, just staring at a corner. Like it was bad. That foster home was pretty much just Tortureville. Like it was pretty bad. Um, but yeah, eventually, of course, I got to the end of high school, and then I realized everything that has happened to me was supposed to shape me to understand that I should have been greedy with money. I should have 100%. The problem was that it always felt wrong to me to save money and not spend it because I didn't see money as a necessity until I became an adult and started living by myself, right? Um, so yeah, money never really changed me. I know people say money changes people. It never really changed me. I didn't see myself as above others. I had friends who had less money, and I would always try and spend money, even though they would be like, "Oh, you don't have to." I'd be like, "No, it's completely fine. Like, I understand where you're coming from, and I just want to be helpful. I just want to make sure that you're having a good time." Like that was just one of the things that I did because again, I would always have to do that. It was forced upon me when I was younger, so it became a mental thing, right? Um, so yeah, money never changed me, even when I had a surplus of it and when I was making my own money, which it should have. It should have showed me that this is the only way where you can do what you want, pretty much, in this world, is if you have money. And I didn't see that until I was in college, and then I realized, oh, I need to provide for myself. I need if I want to like watch movies, if I want to have subscriptions, if I want to play games, you need to have money, an excessive amount of it compared to what I was used to. Because again, I was pretty much broke my entire life. Like the most money I had in my bank account, I think, was $2,000. Yeah, $2,000 in my bank account. That is the most amount of money I've ever had in my bank account. Um, and yeah, it just really taught me a valuable lesson that I shouldn't have taken money for granted. I shouldn't have seen it as a superficial thing, which it is. Humanity is so caught up on it, but really it's a superficial thing. If resources were distributed properly and equally between everybody, nobody would give a shit about money. Money is only there because there's been a hierarchy of people hoarding resources and using this whole trade economy to pretty much create a wealth disparity that is insane to the point where I think that most billionaires and millionaires should be killed. I know that's a controversial take, but it's true because most of them didn't make that money themselves. It's passed off from their families or they made money off of other people, specifically people that don't have the money to be giving in the first place. Um, so yeah, I don't think they should be killed, honestly, at this point. But that was one thing in my mind that I thought of when I was really deep dark, like it just in a horrible position a few years ago. Um, and I had a lot of mental problems, right? But I still wanted to please people. I still wanted to make sure that people were having a good time. Like that has just always been my mentality. So that's why I wanted to help people and why I went to college to get an engineering degree. The problem with that was I was still addicted to weed to the point where I was smoking every day, right? Or like I was literally fiending so hard I would sneak into my roommate's room sometimes and like just take a couple hits off of the like it was really bad. When I didn't have money for weed, obviously, and like I would just be spending money for weed like I had money for weed, right? Like I'd be spending $100 sometimes just buying weed, and like I didn't have that money to spend, but I would do it because I would understand that if I didn't have this, I would literally go crazy. And a lot of people in high school told me that as well. Like once I started smoking weed, I became less violent, which I didn't really realize until later. So, yeah, the reason why I have the title in the video is because Mr. Beast, the money changed him. I thought he was a great person until I've seen all this shit about him. And I've realized, no, he pretty much just uses all of that for attention. That is one of the most worst things that I hate about the society. That attention is the only way to make money as fast and as clearly as possible. I even hate making this video, right? Because this is a way to get people's attention. And that's not what I want. I simply want to help people. I wanted to make fusion batteries as an engineer, which I think is still possible, but nobody is researching microfusion, which is what I want to learn about, right? Or I want to, I guess, develop because it hasn't been made yet. Everyone's working on these massive fusion projects, but they take billions of dollars where you could take like a couple billion, scale it down to as small as possible as you can and try to make something efficient there. Yes, the energy I put will not compare to something as massive as a normal size fusion reactor, but it'll show you how it works on the micro scale, so then you can scale it up. Of course, there's a lot of nuances with that in terms of controlling the plasma fusion reactions in itself, but it would be a much easier way to research fusion, I think, than spending billions of dollars on these massive fusion reactors. So that was my original plan, right? Um, but of course, it went to shit because my mental health problems started taking a toll on me. My weed addiction started taking a toll on me. I didn't see money as something that I needed because I was being supported by my parents. But then I realized after a couple of years, so like into my sophomore year, that I really needed money. But at that point, the job market just went absolute dick water, right? The only thing I could get were internships. I worked at Starbucks for a couple of months, except I was sick for 1 or 2 days and they just laid me off. So it was the best Starbucks in SF apparently. So I mean that makes sense. But it's also like, really? I was sick for a couple of days. I called you beforehand so that you could get someone to schedule or take my shift. Yet they just still decided to fire me. So I don't understand. Um yeah, and like that's pretty much been it, right? Because I've had school, so most of the jobs I've had to take were part time. And even when I tried to do jobs on campus on school, it just didn't work out. I don't know why people didn't want to hire me. Maybe it's because I'm Mexican. Maybe it's because I'm not exactly 6 foot. I'm only 5'11". But I don't understand, right? So now I've seen all the shit that's been happening with just rich people in general, rich like YouTubers, right? Because most YouTubers start from nothing, and I've realized that money has changed them because they always had money. They always had a comfortable baseline, right? Maybe not all of them, but most of them have had a better living situation than I've had. And the thing is that money didn't change me. It just made me more of who I was. I loved helping people. Maybe because it was like literally seared into my mentality that you should be helping people, you should be pleasing people. That is just a thing that's been seared into my mind. But I think that was mostly the problem, right? Is that it affected me to the point where everything else was secondary. But if I was greedy like those YouTubers, I would be living fine right now, right? The problem is that it would probably take a toll. Like, I would have a lot of mental health issues. So, like, I just want to end the video by saying that if I had as much money as Mr. Beast, I would 100% not be spending money trying to make these extravagant videos to try and get as many people to watch them. I would simply just be helping people. I would be, of course, trying to make content so that people would give me money, but I would obviously be helping people. And not like random people that already have money, like he's doing. I would be helping, like the blindness video was great. The Africa building wells in Africa and giving them electricity and stuff, that was great. Why don't you do more of that, Mr. Beast? Um, so I would be doing that, but to the homeless people I see on the streets, and most people wouldn't do that because those people would end up back on the streets, but I would stick with them. I would make sure I would checking on them every week, be like, all right, are you applying for any jobs? Let's see what your investment are. Like, I would be actually, and then I would get other people to help them if I don't have time because I'd be helping other people. Like, it is ridiculous that people have hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars, and instead of using that wealth for something like donating to donations, that doesn't do fucking anything, right? That's a barely a dent in helping the world. It may help like a couple hundreds of thousands of people, but that's it. And most of those people already have the basic necessities for help. I mean, literally helping people. And like I've talked about this, right? I've looked at myself and the universe and the world, just like creation itself, as a being, not a human, because humans are inherently evil. That is just fucking true. You literally killed Jesus on the cross. Humans are inherently evil. The majority of humans have so much greed that they will do anything to have more than other people. I'm not one of those people. I just don't think that. Like, I just want to be fed. And yes, I have a faster metabolism than most, so I would be consuming more than most. And have a decently comfortable life. I don't have to have an amazing car. I don't have to be not working. But of course, it's not an option for me at this point because the fucking economy just sucks dick. But yeah, it's just made me realize that people don't look at it that way. It got to a point in these couple of last months where when I would go out to get food on the rare occasion, because I would just be at home trying to save as much food as possible, I would put my phone in my pocket when I was walking, make sure I didn't step on a single ant or anything, because it's not their fault that they were born that way, right? Every living being deserves to live. It is just how the world should work because eventually it's all going to go away. It's all going to die out. And it is super rare for life to exist, as we've seen in the entirety of our cosmos that we're able to observe. Life is very, very sparse, very scarce, just in general. And I don't understand why people don't see that and realize that life should be invaluable. But most people don't see that. And it's just sad to me, right? All right, let me show you my final weigh in. And yeah, this is with 1 day of not eating. So it's been more now. Why does it always turn sideways? What the... Okay, so you saw that. It's 107.40 with the phone. So yeah, the last video I released was true. I am pretty much somebody who wants to save the world, but I can't because I should have also gone to therapy. I saw it as a bad thing as a child because it was just forced upon me. But really, because I didn't want any help from anybody, even my own parents. Like even now, I don't want help because it makes me feel like I'm just relying on people like I have my entire life. But yeah, it's just pretty sad, right? That we got people over here who are faking, maybe not all of it, because building those wells in Africa definitely helped those people, and helping the blind people, which is pretty funny that people were actually mad about that, is great, right? But and then it goes down to the fact that most of the stuff that he's done, I've seen all his videos, are just for clout, which is pretty sad to me that that is the only way that you can make money, which is not true. You can just help people. And yeah, you won't be making as much money, but as long as you show people that you're making effort, people will come to you. People will gather because they won't see you exactly as a Messiah or a Jesus or whatever, but they'll see you as a beacon of hope. But I feel like those beacons of hope are pretty much gone from the world. There's nobody fucking good in this world anymore. And of course, it has to do mostly with the economy and how everybody in power, which is people with money, it doesn't matter if you're the president or anything, the people with money in this country or in this world are pretty much just shitting on everybody below them. And it's just pretty sad, right? Though I think those are the people that need to be killed, honestly. And no, I'm not taking that back because it's true. If you're going to make life miserable for people just because you have a system that you can take advantage of, you deserve death because you are literally killing hundreds of millions of people every fucking year. Like it's just how it works. And it's just pretty sad because they're ignorant to it. They don't give a shit. So yeah, 107 pounds. God damn, I didn't even realize I was that light. Fuck, I really am dying over here. I mean, you already know, cause like my rib cage is literally poking out of my fucking chest. Yeah, it's just sad. I could have tried to save the world, but the world just doesn't want to be saved. That simple. I could have been a better Mr. Beast, but again, people only follow clout. They don't follow actual, genuine helpfulness. They don't follow actual, genuine compassion and sympathy. Like, yeah, those get a decent amount of views, but compared to like the videos that have hundreds of millions of views, those aren't videos about people helping others or helping animals or just nature itself. Those are videos that people use to get clout. That's pretty much it. So yeah, it's just sad. But yeah, that's why I've been posting the a lot in the past couple of weeks because I've literally just been dying. So that's your fault, world. Peace out. Thank you for fucking nothing. Yeah. Goodbye.